We are seeing growth in all the points of the world. And I think the growth of the UK and in the US, where we're starting to see really a rise in optimism, especially for the small businesses in America.
The World Economic Forum has always painted itself as the guiding hand of the future. Davos meetings aren't just networking events. They're where policy, economics, and technology quietly merge to set the global stage. And at the core of the WEF's 2030 agenda sits one undeniable theme: the digitization of money, identity, and trust. While the mainstream headlines focus on climate change, green energy, or AI, those who dig deeper keep pointing to another layer: blockchain. Not as an experiment, not as a hobbyist's dream, but as a carefully chosen infrastructure for the next phase of global finance. And here's where the whispers begin. XRP, Stellar, and Hedera are constantly dragged into the conversation. To outsiders, these are just altcoins competing in a crowded crypto market. To believers, they're the digital crown jewels, technologies already woven into the 2030 agenda in ways the public won't fully recognize until it's too late. Start with the pattern. The WEF doesn't usually endorse random projects. Its white papers and working groups are highly selective, pulling in companies and protocols that already have strong institutional ties. When Ripple executives show up on WEF panels, or when Stellar is cited in discussions about cross-border remittances, it isn't just casual name-dropping. To conspiracy theorists, these are breadcrumbs, clues that the future rails are being quietly chosen. Add Hedera into the mix with its governing council that looks like a corporate who's who of global powerhouses, and the puzzle starts to take shape. The 2030 agenda is built around ideas like financial inclusion, sustainable development, and digital identity. Each of these has a blockchain angle. Financial inclusion means moving billions of unbanked people into the digital system, and Stellar fits that bill with its microtransactions and stablecoin rails. Sustainable development requires efficient, low-energy infrastructure for tokenized carbon credits, where Hedera has positioned itself. And global liquidity? That's where XRP shines, already branding itself as the bridge asset capable of moving value seamlessly across borders, regardless of currency. But the deeper claim isn't just about utility. It's about orchestration. The rumor is that these three protocols aren't competing, they're collaborating. Not openly, but through parallel adoption, each being handed a role within the future structure of digital finance. Like a three-piece lock where each coin is a key component: XRP for settlement, XLM for retail, HBAR for enterprise governance. A trinity of ledgers forming the unseen backbone of a WEF-approved digital economy. Of course, the WEF won't announce this outright. That's not how these things work. The organization thrives on ambiguity, carefully phrasing reports in terms like distributed ledger technology or digital assets without naming winners. Yet, enthusiasts point to the coincidences stacking up. Ripple joining ISO 20022 standards bodies. Stellar's public work with MoneyGram and IBM on remittances. Hedera's partnership web-spanning Google, Standard Bank, and universities across the globe. To the average investor, these are just news items. To those watching the bigger picture, they look more like placements, chess pieces being moved into position for 2030. And timing matters. The WEF has long said the 2020s are a decade of transformation. Central bank digital currencies are advancing, with pilot programs already running in Europe, Asia, and Africa. Cross-border payment networks are testing tokenization at scale. Corporates are demanding greener, faster blockchains for compliance and auditing. The question isn't whether blockchain will underpin this transformation. The question is which blockchains. And if the rumors are even half right, XRP, Stellar, and Hedera are already in the room. This is why people call them the digital crown jewels. Not because they're the biggest by market cap, not because they dominate headlines like Bitcoin or Ethereum, but because they're seen as chosen. Chosen by institutions woven into policies and aligned with the quiet ambitions of Davos. Whether this is deliberate orchestration or just the natural result of being early movers in the right niches doesn't really matter. The effect is the same. As the 2030 agenda rolls forward, these three tokens could become less like speculative assets and more like the rails of a new system most people never voted for, but will inevitably use. And that's what makes the rumor so powerful. It isn't just about price predictions. It's about control, governance, and the possibility that the future of money is already scripted, with XRP, Stellar, and Hedera cast in starring roles. If there's one token that keeps circling back into every WEF-related rumor, it's XRP. The reason is simple. Ripple has spent the past decade not chasing hype, but chasing boardrooms, regulators, and institutions. While Bitcoin maxis were preaching about decentralization and Ethereum developers were experimenting with DeFi, Ripple was shaking hands with bankers, regulators, and yes, popping up in WEF circles. To many, that's not a coincidence, but a strategy. And if the 2030 agenda is about building a globally compliant, streamlined financial system, XRP looks almost purpose-built for that role. Consider Ripple's consistent presence in policy discussions. Brad Garlinghouse and other Ripple executives don't just show up at crypto conferences. They're in rooms where the future of global finance is actually being debated. Davos panels, IMF working groups, BIS studies. Even when XRP's price languishes, Ripple's lobbying and networking never stop. And this has fueled one of the strongest theories in the XRP community, that XRP was never meant to be a retail coin in the way Dogecoin or Solana are treated. Instead, it's supposedly designed as an institutional-grade liquidity tool, a utility token hidden in plain sight, waiting for the switch to flip once the new system is ready. The mechanics support this theory. XRP is built for speed, scalability, and low transaction costs. Unlike Bitcoin's clunky settlement or Ethereum's high gas fees, XRP can move money across borders in seconds at fractions of a cent. And this is exactly the kind of infrastructure the WEF and global regulators talk about when they describe the need for efficient cross-border settlement systems. RippleNet, Ripple's enterprise solution, is already being tested by banks and remittance providers. The idea is simple. If central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, are issued at scale, something will need to bridge them, and XRP positions itself as that bridge. This is where the rumors heat up. Many in the XRP community claim that global regulators, central banks, and the WEF have already chosen XRP as a core settlement layer. They point to Ripple's membership in ISO 20022 standardization groups, where financial messaging for the new global system is being drafted. They highlight Ripple's partnerships with institutions in Asia, the Middle East, and Europe, regions where CBDC pilots are furthest along. And they note that Ripple has been involved in countless regulatory discussions in the US and abroad, even while fighting its lawsuit with the SEC. To believers, this isn't coincidence. It's alignment, XRP quietly being slotted into the system that will replace SWIFT and grease the rails of the global economy. But there's a darker twist to the theory. Some argue that XRP's volatility and years of price suppression are deliberate, that its value is being kept in check until the right moment. In this telling, XRP isn't just another asset floating in the open market. It's a tool being staged. The narrative goes that when the financial system is ready, when CBDCs roll out, when SWIFT transitions, when the WEF's 2030 digital finance milestones hit, XRP's true role will be revealed. And at that moment, the token could be revalued overnight, no longer priced like a speculative coin but as the backbone of a multi-trillion-dollar liquidity system. Critics dismiss this as fantasy, of course. They argue Ripple is just another fintech company, XRP is just a token with limited adoption, and the WEF isn't secretly scripting a new world order. Yet the coincidences keep fueling speculation. Ripple's constant name drops in central bank research. Its testing of real-time settlement solutions in places like Bhutan and Palau. Its deep ties with remittance giants like MoneyGram in the past. The alignment is hard to ignore. Even those who scoff at conspiracy theories admit that XRP is uniquely positioned compared to most crypto assets. And then there's the symbolism of timing. The WEF has declared the 2020s a period of transformation, and by 2030, its goals include universal financial access. Ripple's stated mission? To enable the Internet of Value, where money moves as easily as information. The rhetoric overlaps in uncanny ways. Both emphasize inclusion, speed, and efficiency. Both envision a world where outdated financial rails give way to something faster and more connected. And in that overlap, believers see confirmation that XRP's destiny is already tied to the WEF's roadmap. Of course, not everything is transparent. The WEF won't publish a press release tomorrow saying, XRP will run the world's liquidity. That's not how the game works. Power operates through signals, partnerships, and gradual adoption. And that's what makes the rumors so sticky. The absence of outright confirmation doesn't kill the theory, it strengthens it. Every quiet meeting, every vague WEF report on digital assets, every Ripple panel at Davos adds another thread to the web. So, XRP becomes more than just a cryptocurrency. In the eyes of its most ardent supporters, it's a chosen instrument, a pre-selected bridge currency, already embedded in policy discussions, waiting for the world to catch up. Whether that's true or just an elaborate reading of coincidences doesn't really matter for the rumor mill. The narrative has taken on a life of its own. And for those watching the 2030 agenda unfold, XRP is already cast as the lead character, the digital crown jewel meant to hold the system together once the transformation is complete. While XRP is often cast as the institutional workhorse in these rumors, Stellar XLM gets painted as the softer, more retail-friendly counterpart. The theory suggests that if XRP is meant to handle the big liquidity corridors, banks, central banks, and global settlements, then XLM is the coin that will connect the rest of us. Everyday people, the unbanked, migrant workers sending remittances, small businesses in emerging markets. This is where Stellar's origin story becomes a crucial part of the narrative. Unlike Ripple, which has leaned hard into boardrooms and regulators, Stellar was founded with the language of inclusivity. Jed McCaleb, who famously split from Ripple after internal disagreements, launched Stellar with the vision of banking the unbanked. The Stellar Development Foundation is a nonprofit. Its messaging has always leaned toward humanitarian goals, not just corporate adoption. For conspiracy watchers and WEF theorists, this sets up a neat division of labor. Ripple/XRP plays the institutional role, while Stellar/XLM becomes the public-facing side of the digital finance revolution. Together, they form a dual system, two halves of the same strategy. The WEF has published research repeatedly emphasizing financial inclusion as a pillar of its 2030 goals. Billions of people still lack access to banking services, yet most of them carry mobile phones. This is the market Stellar has targeted for years, and it's the exact market the WEF describes in its policy briefs. Rumors spread quickly because the overlap is striking. When Stellar teams up with organizations like the United Nations or the IMF to pilot remittance programs, believers see it as more than experimentation. They see it as preparation for a global rollout, aligned with WEF milestones. One of the most persistent rumors is that Stellar is being lined up as the settlement layer for CBDC-light applications, not necessarily central bank backbones, but the distribution rails. If a government launches a digital currency, who ensures it reaches citizens seamlessly, cheaply, and across borders? That's where XLM comes in. Already, Stellar has worked on projects like the Ukraine Digital Hryvnia pilot and has been linked to discussions about stablecoin infrastructure in developing regions. For supporters, this isn't just coincidence. It's evidence of Stellar being slotted into the exact role WEF documents describe, giving the public access to digital money at scale. There's also the Circle USDC connection. USDC, one of the largest regulated stablecoins, runs on Stellar in addition to Ethereum and other networks. This gives XLM a direct link to one of the most WEF-compatible digital assets in circulation. Circle has repeatedly shown up in policy discussions, and its CEO Jeremy Allaire has been spotted at Davos. If USDC is the stablecoin that plugs into regulated finance, and Stellar is one of its core networks, then by association Stellar is inside the same conversation. In the conspiracy imagination, this makes XLM the chosen blockchain for moving regulated stablecoins around the world, perfectly dovetailing with financial inclusion goals. Critics argue this is all projection. Stellar's adoption has been modest compared to Ethereum or even Solana, and many of its partnerships have been small-scale pilots that never evolved into mass adoption. But that hasn't slowed the rumors. In fact, it's almost become part of the myth. Stellar is deliberately flying under the radar, keeping its global role quiet until the timing is right. The WEF doesn't want flashy headlines. It wants functional, tested infrastructure ready to deploy when the old system transitions. Stellar's quiet progress fits that narrative like a glove. The conspiracy extends further when people point out Stellar's nonprofit structure. While Ripple has investors and shareholders, Stellar operates differently. Its nonprofit foundation aligns neatly with the WEF's rhetoric about stakeholder capitalism, systems that aren't purely about profit, but about serving broader social goals. To believers, Stellar isn't just a cryptocurrency. It's a Trojan horse, built to deliver digital finance in a way that looks humanitarian but is ultimately integrated into the WEF's top-down agenda. The unbanked will gain access, yes, but through rails that are already locked into a global system controlled by elites. Another thread in the rumors revolves around Stellar's technical capabilities. Like XRP, XLM transactions are fast and cheap. But unlike XRP, Stellar has been tested more directly with grassroots applications. Small-scale payments, remittances, even charity disbursements. This duality plays into the broader theory. XRP for the banks, Stellar for the people. Together, they cover both ends of the spectrum, creating a comprehensive infrastructure that can serve a fully digitized global economy. For those following the 2030 agenda closely, Stellar becomes the coin that makes the narrative complete. Without a retail-facing asset, the story of a new financial system feels incomplete. The WEF can't just talk about central banks and liquidity corridors. It also needs to show that ordinary people will benefit. Stellar fits perfectly into this narrative. Whether intentional or not, its branding and history position it as the friendly face of the digital shift. And when combined with Ripple's institutional muscle, it gives theorists the perfect one-two punch. Skeptics will say this is all cherry-picking. But to the rumor mill, cherry-picking is the point. Every Stellar pilot, every USDC integration, every line in a WEF report about digital inclusion becomes another puzzle piece. On their own, they're innocuous. Put together, they paint a picture. One where Stellar is already locked into the framework for 2030, just waiting for the right moment to step into the spotlight. And that's why Stellar has become such a central piece in these discussions. It's not about current price action or whether developers are building apps on the chain. It's about symbolism, alignment, and the possibility that the WEF's vision requires not just one coin but a duo. Ripple's XRP to grease the rails at the institutional level, and Stellar's XLM to connect billions of people to the system at the retail level. Whether true or not, it's a compelling story. And in the world of rumors, compelling stories are often stronger than facts. If XRP is cast as the institutional engine and Stellar the retail on-ramp, then Hedera HBAR often gets described as the hidden layer tying the entire ecosystem together. The rumor goes that while Ripple and Stellar handle money flows, Hedera provides the trust layer, a decentralized but enterprise-backed infrastructure where data, identity, and compliance mechanisms are managed. In other words, HBAR isn't just about payments. It's about creating the foundation that makes a digital-first economy possible. The World Economic Forum has frequently highlighted the need for digital trust, verifiable identity, and transparent data sharing in its 2030 agenda. For conspiracy watchers, Hedera checks every box. Its unique governance council, featuring global corporations like Google, IBM, Boeing, and Standard Bank, looks to skeptics like a list of WEF affiliates quietly building the rails of tomorrow. The WEF has even published Hedera case studies on its website, showcasing applications in carbon credits, supply chain tracking, and enterprise tokenization. To believers, this isn't coincidence. It's a roadmap. One of the strongest talking points fueling the rumor mill is Hedera's public commitment to sustainability. Its consensus mechanism is far less energy-intensive than proof-of-work blockchains, and it has aligned itself with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. The WEF repeatedly pushes the SDG framework as the guiding principle for its future economy. So when Hedera emphasizes green credentials and builds partnerships with environmental initiatives, conspiracy theorists see it as proof that HBAR is the officially approved blockchain of the WEF. Another major thread is Hedera's focus on tokenization, not just of money, but of everything. Land deeds, supply chains, carbon credits, digital IDs, all can be managed on Hedera's network. The WEF has consistently argued that the future economy will run on tokenized assets, where ownership and data can be verified instantly across borders. Hedera's architecture is tailor-made for this vision. Its hashgraph algorithm allows for high throughput and finality, making it ideal for large-scale enterprise adoption. If XRP is the settlement coin and Stellar the inclusion coin, HBAR becomes the infrastructure coin. Together, they cover the financial, retail, and technological layers of the supposed new system. Critics point out that Hedera adoption remains niche compared to Ethereum or Solana. But to conspiracy theorists, that doesn't matter. Hedera's partnerships with companies like Google and IBM are taken as proof of its legitimacy. The narrative suggests that while public hype focuses on Bitcoin or Ethereum, the real infrastructure is being quietly built with corporate and institutional backing. Hedera doesn't need to dominate headlines. It needs to be quietly integrated into the global framework. And the fact that the WEF itself has spotlighted Hedera projects only adds fuel to the fire. Perhaps the most potent rumor is that Hedera will serve as the identity and compliance layer for CBDCs. Ripple may power settlements, Stellar may distribute tokens to the public, but Hedera could manage KYC, AML, and identity verification at a global scale. The WEF has called digital identity the key enabler of the fourth industrial revolution. Hedera's enterprise-grade design, governance by trusted corporations, and public-private partnerships make it a prime candidate in this story. If true, HBAR wouldn't just be another token. It would be the backbone of compliance, the unseen infrastructure ensuring that digital money and assets remain trackable and controllable. For supporters of these rumors, the trio of XRP, XLM, and HBAR forms a complete system. Each has its role. Ripple aligns with banks, Stellar with the unbanked, and Hedera with the corporations and regulators ensuring everything runs smoothly. Whether intentional or not, their combined narratives mirror the WEF's language about inclusion, sustainability, and digital transformation. Of course, skeptics dismiss this as speculative pattern matching. Hedera's corporate council may just be a pragmatic governance model, not evidence of elite coordination. Its WEF case studies could be ordinary industry spotlights, not secret endorsements. And its sustainability narrative could simply be a marketing strategy in an era where green is a buzzword. Still, the alignment is striking enough to keep the rumor mill alive. The reality is that Hedera, like Ripple and Stellar, is working on real use cases. But in the conspiracy imagination, these use cases are not isolated experiments. They're rehearsals for a future system already planned by the WEF, where money, identity, and assets flow seamlessly through rails managed by XRP, XLM, and HBAR. Whether fact or fantasy, it's a powerful narrative, one that ensures HBAR isn't just another coin in the story, but the hidden infrastructure holding it all together. When you step back and look at the full picture, the pieces start to feel like they click together, at least if you're willing to entertain the rumor mill. XRP becomes the liquidity engine, bridging banks and financial institutions with real-time settlement. Stellar steps in as the inclusion network, bringing stablecoins, tokenized dollars, and financial access to millions who are currently left out. And then Hedera, with its corporate governance model and focus on trust, sustainability, and identity, quietly provides the compliance and infrastructure layer. 3 networks, 3 missions, yet all of them echo the same themes the World Economic Forum has been pushing for years: inclusion, sustainability, tokenization, and digital trust. Now, is this a carefully coordinated plan? Or are we just drawing lines between projects that happen to share similar goals? That's the tension that keeps this rumor alive. The skeptics argue it's coincidence and marketing spin. But to those who believe, it looks like the blueprint of a new financial order. If the WEF's 2030 agenda really does involve integrating blockchain into the backbone of global finance, it's not far-fetched to imagine XRP, XLM, and HBAR playing outsized roles. At the end of the day, whether you buy into the conspiracy or not, what's undeniable is that these projects are building real-world infrastructure that could reshape money and data flows worldwide. And that makes them worth watching closely. If you want to keep digging into these kinds of stories, the connections, the rumors, and the real breakthroughs behind blockchain, make sure you're subscribed. We'll keep unpacking what the mainstream doesn't say, connecting dots between tech, finance, and global agendas. Because whether fact or speculation, these narratives are shaping the way people think about the future of money.